Hello, and thank you for checking out this video. Today, I want to answer the question, does the musician's practice glove change the tone of your instrument, and specifically, change the tone of your bass? So for some context, I have an underlying autoimmune condition called dermatomyositis. It falls in the family of rheumatology and other autoimmune rheumatological type diseases. So if we split the word up, dermatomyositis, derm, skin, myo for muscle, and itis, inflammation. And unfortunately, I have all of those things. I don't want to gross out the viewers here, and plus I'm not entirely sure who's watching this, but oftentimes the joints in the skin of my hands can turn lots of different colors, and my joints are chronically inflamed. And my muscles have been affected, so unfortunately I need to walk with a cane, and I can't walk very far. Where it affects my musical life is that my fingertips from chronic vasculitis, so inflammation of the blood vessels, has resulted in me having very tender, sensitive spots on my fingertips. And I often get these kind of darkened black ischemic spots. So I essentially have dead fingertips and they come and go, like all things related to autoimmune diseases. Some days are better than others. And now, music for me is a huge part of my life. It's not my primary income stream, but I do have a small income stream from playing music. I've been a music director at a church since 2010, and I continue to hold that gig. So I'm playing 45 to 48 Sundays a year, along with all the preparatory time and rehearsals that go along with that, on multiple instruments. I lead from keyboards and pianos. I play drums when the drummer can't make it. I play bass. I also play cello in that particular gig. My other very significant part of my musical life is the humanitarian side. And I have produced several fundraising albums to make money for a variety of causes. Most notably, I have a long-standing 10-plus year relationship now with Habitat for Humanity. And I now have 2 records out that have served as fundraisers for them. And I've raised about $30,000 for Habitat. Most importantly, music is just fun for me and is a great way for me to relieve stress. And it's just fun to be able to get together with other people and hang and write songs and play music together. So when I first started having symptoms of this autoimmune condition, it was around 2016 or so. I really felt like my world was coming to an end. Both my professional career was affected, and now my musical life was affected. Like what's left for me to do? So I really had to scramble to find ways to kind of evolve and keep up with the world and adapt and just make the best of what I still had. So that's the kind of historical context of why I kind of went down this particular route. So before I arrived at the musician's practice glove, I tried a variety of things, some by accident, some on purpose. I accidentally got crazy glue on my fingertips once, trying to fix a toy, which kind of made me go, that's interesting. The tone was absolutely terrible. And even though I'm not a dermatologist, please do not intentionally put crazy glue on your fingertips. Just don't do it. It's terrible for your skin. So please don't do that on purpose. And the tone sucks, so just don't do it. I got the best results putting medicine grade, hospital grade skin tape on my finger, just putting a thin layer and wrapping around so it doesn't come off. I got reasonable results with that, but it really affected the dexterity of my fingers because you can't bend your fingers as well. And more importantly, it left kind of gummy, sticky residue on my instrument and strings, especially if your fingers start to sweat a little bit. And with, kind of expansion and stretching of the tape with time, it starts to fall off. So it was fine for like the first 30, 40 minutes or so, and then it just stopped working. It worked better for piano for me. If I really needed to, then I will still tape up my fingers in that manner. But for stringed instruments, especially cello, it was awful on the cello. You can kind of get away with it on the bass, but it leaves a gummy residue on your strings. So I don't really recommend that. But then, a very simple Google search and YouTube search looking for what other people in like similar conditions and how they've managed to cope and evolve. I came across, Scott Devine, of course, a very prominent YouTube bass instructor. Now he has something called focal dystonia, which is a neurological condition that causes fingers to curl when you don't want them to. And how the musician's practice gloves work for him through kind of a neural sensory feedback loop. It kind of distracts your brain enough that your fingers don't think you're playing bass, and then your fingers don't curl. It's very interesting how your brain works in that manner. Now, I'm also not a neurologist, so I'm going to refrain from commenting any further on focal dystonia. The other prominent bass player who wears gloves is Etienne Mbappe. Now, from what I understand, he wears it not for medical reasons, but he just likes the sound he gets from it, and it makes the strings last longer, apparently. Perfectly valid reasons, and if you like the tone you get from it, then right on. So that kind of got the ball rolling for me about the use of gloves. Now, a friend of mine joked, why don't you just go full-on Stewart Copeland? I also play the drums, so the thought of having two golf gloves on was an interesting one. I used to golf when I was able to hold on to a golf club properly. Ironically, when I was a golfer, I didn't like the feel of both the impact and the feel of the golf grip while I was wearing a glove. So I never wore a glove when I played golf, which kind of forced me to not kind of vice grip the golf club so tight that I would shred my fingers apart. So it kind of served an alternative purpose there. But as you can imagine, bilateral golfing gloves for drumstick use might be okay, but for anything related to stringed instruments, you're going to lose a lot of that tactile feel of the string, which is going to change how your brain and arms interact with fingerboard and fretboard position, because you're not feeling your gliss in the length of the string as well. So you're going to lose that sensory feedback. But more importantly, due to the thickness of the material, it's really going to get in the way of intonation and the contact point between your fingers and the strings. And I think just the friction of the material is really going to get in your fingers' way with fingerings. So I briefly tried it, but that was never really kind of a long-term solution for me. So what else have I tried? I've tried runner's gloves, and you can get those at any kind of running store. So these are kind of thin nylon type gloves. Some come in different materials, but they're supposed to be breathable and thin, which I thought were maybe able to get me into that territory. But like the golfer's gloves, the material just kind of stuck onto itself, and the fit was never ideal. I have pretty short fingers to begin with, but I always had a little bit of material left over at the fingertip, so it really affected my playing technique, and it really affected the contact point between the fingertips and the string. Those were completely unusable on the cello. I felt it was unusable on the bass as well, but better than the golfing gloves. What else did I try? I tried the thinner nylon glove lining that came with a pair of winter mittens. These were even thinner, and they fit better than the runner's gloves. But again, the fit wasn't perfect. It was kind of it had extra material in all the wrong places. Again, the fingertip section was just not shaped for this purpose. So unfortunately, that didn't work either. The glove I tried after that was the dollar store Dollarama special, and these are just kind of knit gloves that you can buy at the dollar store. These were even thicker, so it didn't work for the same reasons we've already talked about. But more importantly, these gloves, due to the fabric and the material they were made of, would catch on everything. So you can imagine with Roundwound strings, it would just be shredded apart after one or two songs. And they also came apart in between the fingers as well. But again, keep in mind, these types of gloves were never really designed for bass playing in mind. So that ultimately left me scouring the internet for what other options there were. And that's how I came across the Musician's Practice Glove. Now, that is a completely unsponsored video, and if anything, I don't want this to sound like an infomercial at all. So if you want to learn more about the Musician's Practice Glove, please go to their website, simple Google search. There are a few videos on YouTube about this, but what I want to talk about today is whether or not these cause a tonal difference, which to me is, I think, a very important aspect of what solution will work the best. So we're going to do this on electric bass guitar today. And what I would like to do is I would play two passages, one higher up in the neck, one lower down on the neck. And we'll do it with bare hand, glove on a fretting hand, and no glove on plucking hand. And then we'll try it with gloves also on the plucking hand. So we'll do one set on a Roundwound strung bass, and then we'll do a second set on a Flatwound strung bass. And then we can come back and discuss the results, and you can be your own judge. Here we go. So this is my short scale Atelier Z jazz bass. It's currently strung with Dunlop Roundwounds in nickel. So here we are with nothing on my hands, as you can see. And here's hoping this doesn't hurt too much. Now let's try it with the musician's glove on my fretting hand. And now let's put on a glove on my plucking hand. All right. Gloves off. Let's switch bases. All right. So this is a Flatwound Thomastik Infeld flat strung short scale F bass. Let's try it. Nothing on my hands. Glove on the fretting hand. Gloves on both hands. All right. So here are my findings. I find with only the glove on my fretting hand, it's definitely a rounder, softer tone. There is considerably less string noise, especially with the Roundwounds. That's less of an issue with the Flatwounds, where you get less string noise and fret noise to begin with. But that's a noticeable difference. So it's a lot quieter on the Roundwounds. It's almost like you've taken the tone knob of a passive bass and just rolled it back 20-25%. That's kind of the sound and feel that I get. which you can probably compensate with by either rolling your tone knob slightly higher, or if you play an active bass, maybe turning the high mids a little higher, or even the treble a little higher. So you can probably compensate for that. There's a sizing chart you can get through their website, which I found pretty accurate. So I've been wearing the size small, and that's where the color comes in. And I find it fits my hand pretty well based on their measuring chart. I don't know if you can appreciate this on the camera, but there's very little kind of extra material or leftover space at the fingertip. So for me, I am able to kind of use proper curved finger playing technique up and down the neck, and I find I do get reasonable fingertip to string contact. But the sound overall is slightly duller and less string noise, and like I said, it sounds like you've rolled a tone knob back by 20-25%. That's compared to bare hand. Now, putting a glove on my plucking hand, this sounds like you've rolled a tone knob all the way down for me. And it's perhaps a bit too dull sounding for my taste, and that's a purely subjective tone. It's also the feel. I think for a plucking hand, also because of the way I play with a lot of ghost notes and a lot of kind of short muted notes, that I find the material gets in the way of that, and it just makes everything sound considerably less articulate, muddy almost, and it's almost like I'm not playing those ghost notes at all. And even if it comes across on a recording to my brain when I'm playing, I find having the glove on my plucking hand really changes how I kind of subconsciously attack the string and attack the note. Much to a lesser extent on this hand, but definitely on my plucking hand. So it changes the way I play, because I think it changes the envelope of the note, and it changes the bloom of the note. So your mileage may vary. Certainly when the fingertips on my right hand get really bad and ugly, I just have to stop playing for those reasons. I did, start playing with my thumb more. Where I have to. So, again, you just have to keep adapting and evolving with the world. So I think for me, my best middle ground is still playing bare hand in my right hand. But I do feel I play considerably better with a glove on my left hand, and I can play considerably longer. So a lot of these videos I've been making would not have been possible had it not been for this glove. And I say that as a non-endorser, that is an unsponsored video. But it has been a bit of a game changer just in terms of me being able to play it all. So in summary, I think the glove on the fretting hand makes the biggest difference tonally on roundwound strings, to a lesser degree on flatwounds. I really don't like the tone I get wearing it on my plucking hand, but again, your mileage and your needs may vary. And this is just one of the many ways that, as human beings, we just have to adapt and evolve with the world around us in order to continue to enjoy doing the things we love. But hopefully, this video will answer the question of whether or not the musician's practice glove will change the tone of your bass. Thanks for watching. Until next time.